compromise for the people who have the gardens. That's really what I suggested this for. If you want to continue talking about this, it's going to take forever because it's never going to be solved.
That's a great
Never going to be
idea.
solved.
What a
Right.
good way of looking at
Bill,
government.
my answer to that is in 95, 96, the village addressed the issue with deer. And here we are 14, 15 years later. So I would say, as opposed to what you're saying, Bill, I would say, let's not act in haste and repent
We're not
leisure.
acting in haste. It's been going on for months, and we haven't even had a first reading yet. We're still talking about it.
6 months
And we're
doesn't
gonna be talking
compare
about it a year from now.
to 14 years.
No, I had brown hair when you were just kidding.
Yes, sir.
I'm Robert Call, 2975 Arrowwood Trail. If I may interject, because often discussions get to be polarized, I think that's what I'm hearing tonight. And I think everybody has values, no matter what side you're on. I've been here 25 years. The first day we moved in, I fell in love with the deer. 25 years later, I love the deer. We have a deer fence, because I love the trail, the grounds, and the way it looks. So what I'm really talking about is balance. So the polarization is good because you get to a place that will solve the problem. It might take another 10 years, but we'll see. But I'd like to find a place to balance so that we're not impacting one side versus the other, where it's not a war, not an argument, going at each other. And I haven't quite heard it yet.
I haven't either. I'd be happy to listen.
Me too.
We'll get to you. Are you finished?
It's good. I could go on for a couple hours.
Mr. Needleman?
Yeah, I just as a reminder, and the compromise, I think the word that's been kind of thrown around here, that there was the board, the plan commission members felt that the compromise was not the elimination of woodland preservation fences, but the pullback. So I don't want, and I'm just reminding everybody of that it isn't a matter of that they can't exist anymore, and the person from the DNR, whatever his name was, he's been quoted 18
Martin
times here
Jones.
tonight, he specifically did make the statement that he would prefer to see pathways for the deer to be able to maneuver between the property rather than being herded in a way, or however, forced down a line of fences to another spot. His suggestion was spacing between the fences, which I think was one of the reasons that led the commissioners to feel that not to eliminate the fences, but to just pull them back and allow space for them to maneuver in.
What you could do is actually go to the compromise, grandfather this, and anybody who wants a new deer fence can go back to the lot lines, to the setbacks.
Setbacks. Right, so isn't it, they're not existent in
Okay, here's the other.
Bill, excuse me, could I respond
No,
to
wait one moment.
David?
When I'm finished. One of the things that we still have to remember, that we're not eliminating fences. We're saying you can still have a fence, you can still have a fence to your lot line. It just cannot be an 8-foot fence or a 9-foot fence. What you can have, especially with people who have the current deer fence, is to plant something behind your fence. So the deer, when that fence comes down to 6 feet, that the deer aren't going to jump over because they're not going to jump into a shrub. Go ahead.
Yeah, David, that was a really interesting session with Marty Jones. And so I went back and I listened to the transcript and I wrote it down. You're welcome to a copy of this if you like. I did not hear that comment about channeling. And you're welcome to go back and listen yourself.
But I remember.
Because I would be, well, the tape is there,
Okay.
and I would like to know whether he said that or not, or maybe we should call him. But I have another thought, Bill.
That would,
I have another thought. I think over and over, during the campaign, when we had the RPC candidates forum, the RAA forum, the comment that came up about fences and deer fences usually sprang from an aesthetic point of view. And I wonder if we have missed an opportunity, and that is that what we really care, our collective lives, is what we see of each other. And And so I wonder if a more appropriate way of looking at the issue of fences and deer fences is, what do we residents see from the public thoroughfares? And should we approach it this way and say, well, we have a restriction for the fence that abuts the public thoroughfare, but a fence at the back of the lot line, which nobody sees, should be treated differently. And that might be the compromise, sir, that you're suggesting, where we can find ways of doing, of compromising. That is, perhaps the fence at the public thoroughfare, it either has to be pulled back 20 feet from the thoroughfare, or if it's a deer fence, it has to come down to 6 feet, and then you put shrubbery behind it. But there are ways to compromise this, and I think if we're clever and patient, we can find these avenues that's more satisfactory.
I'm going to take one more question from the audience. Dr. Beckler?
It's a statement, Your Honor. May I stand for the podium?
Sure.
As many of you may be aware, I am a Plan Commission member, and I've been silent for several weeks, if not months. But many of the issues that were discussed by trustees Haber, Chamberlain, and Kumjian resonated with my personal experience here in Riverwoods. You're absolutely right, Trustee Haber. When I married my husband and moved to his home in Riverwoods, I hadn't a clue about what living in the environment of a deer population meant. So we hired a very expensive landscape architect who has been giving me lectures in horticulture and the deer population, and we plan all these plants and flowers. To dissuade the deer from coming, we don't have a fence, number one. Number two, I also agree that the issue is the deer and not the fence. And as a member of the Plan Commission and very, very new to local politics, I decided one afternoon after work to drive around my community and see for myself what the brouhaha was about the deer fences. It was a very quiet Wednesday afternoon. The birds were chirping, the sun was shining, the trees were turning colors, and I took it upon myself to drive very, very slowly up and down all of the streets that were named by these townsfolk who took the time and effort to come to the meeting. And I saw fence after fence after fence after fence, and in the quiet of the autumn afternoon, those fences were screaming to me. They were screaming. It's not the fence, it's the deer. One final comment. I had the privilege to work in the south side of Chicago for 4.5 years next to the Robert Taylor Projects. And I took care of starving children, starving families. And we all eat meat, we all eat fish and chicken. And with great trepidation, I will say that there are other alternatives to managing the deer. And as much as it would be a heinous act against the Hippocratic oath that I took about taking care of patients, I would be in favor of culling deer if we could feed the hungry in our city. If we could partner with restaurants, Charlie Trotter or Gail Gand, who lives in Riverwoods, and create a very unique way of providing food to our residents in the city who would benefit from deer meat. So we perhaps could solve a problem in Riverwoods and help solve the problem of hunger in Chicago. Thank you.
To respond to this, when we do cull deer, it runs about $750 a deer kill. And the deer is packaged and sent to movie vendors.
Oh, excellent. Thank
So
you.
that's great.
Thank you.
We've been doing that. So, whatever
Yeah, my
we do.
naivete. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, that's okay. You didn't know. But it's still expensive, and